Are we ready? Are we ready? Yay, cool. Sweet. Awesome. Okay, so we made a copy before of this watermelon. Let's just unhide that and click on that layer, so we're working on that layer. And perhaps just let's try flipping it around, just rotating it around. So that's Command T, and just rotating it and putting it down towards the ground. And perhaps lowering the opacity and giving it some other blend mode. Just exploring the different options of blend modes to see if we can find something that will create some kind of nice look for my picture. Perhaps I like this one a bit. A bit, yeah. So I'll just erase the edges so they don't stand out too much. Perhaps erase randomly a few places. And if I like how it actually appears on the ground, I could just make another copy of this and put it on top of the other. That makes the blend mode have double its effects. So I'll just say Command J to see if I like that even better. Yeah, I think it's okay. If you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Is any of you watching Ash vs. Evil Dead? No? Okay. Does any of you know what Evil Dead is? Army of Darkness? No idea? Oh my god, I think I'll need to show you a trailer or something when we're done. Because that's awesome. Okay, so enough with the melon. Let's do the next thing, which is to put eyes inside of this hand right here. You notice on this other piece of artwork right here we've put some eyes inside of the hand. So let's do that in this picture as well. So next thing we'll do is actually open up this picture right here called Path Pen Tool. And some of you will be like, why not just choose the elliptical marquee tool? Yeah, you could do that, but let's just get a habit of how to use pen tool in Photoshop. By actually also trying to use one of the other shapes which is located in the vector area. Because right here, down here we got below the rectangular tool, we actually also have the ellipse tool. Rectangle tool, we have the ellipse tool. So we'll just select this ellipse tool, and you notice it's quite hard actually trying to drag from up here and find the right shape. So when actually trying to find the right shape of an eye, it's often better to just locate yourself in the center while drawing the shape. And I don't actually want any color to be on top of my shape, so I could just change it to be a path inside of the control menu. If it's not already a path, perhaps change it to be a path. Otherwise the shape will be blocking the actual eye, so we can't see where it's located. So I'm just going to change it to a path. Again, it's the ellipse tool. It is not the elliptical marquee tool. So the ellipse tool gonna be located approximately in the center, as close to the center as I can get, and then click and drag, and then hold down Alt for it to grow bigger from the center, and hold down Shift for it to grow proportionally. And then when I'm approximately done, even though I don't hit 100% correct, I'll try hitting the size approximately correct. So when I'm done now, I approximately have the correct size. I'll just release my mouse like that, and then I'll move the object by just selecting my black vector arrow. It's called the path selection tool. Choose that one, and then you can just move the object around using your keys, your arrow keys. So when it's located around here, I think that's approximately where the eye is, I'll need to change this part up by the eyelid. Up here by the eyelid, I'll need to change that. So in order to do so, we'll add some anchor points. So inside of the pen tool, you'll notice that we'll also find what is known as the add anchor point tool. But actually you don't need to change your tool to become the add anchor point tool, because the pen tool will automatically ask, do you want to add a point right here? If you click at some point of your vector path, you see then it will say plus. So when I'm located right around here, I'll just click once for it to add an anchor point right there. And I'll actually try doing the same on the right side, just trying to add one right here. Meaning now we have an anchor point by the start of the eyelid and an anchor point by the end of the eyelid, and one up here. See, perhaps I don't even need this one up here, so I can actually delete that and just use the two remaining anchor points. So to delete an anchor point, you could either choose the delete anchor point tool over here, or you could just be standing on top of an existing anchor point and it will say minus. So you can actually just delete it like that. Next thing we'll do is choose to work with the convert anchor point tool, the convert point tool, and by holding down Alt with the normal pen tool, we will get to the convert point tool. You see I'm using the regular pen tool, and by holding down Alt, if I go by a handle, it will show the convert point tool. So I can just click and drag in order for it to change its curve, and just put it so it fits the eyelid. Oh yeah. Does that make sense to you? Sweet. When you're done, you just click make selection up in the control menu, the control bar, click, then click OK, and then we have a selection. You can invert it and choose for it to delete the background, for it to make the selection. Yep. Just right up here. If you ever have troubles finding it, just go to paths. Go to paths. Every time I record video, it's always calling this phone. No, I do not want to talk to you. Okay, so you can always locate it in paths if you can't find it inside of the control menu. It's in paths and make selection. Load path as a selection. Okay, so when you've done this, you might as well extract it if you want to, like that, and then move it to the other picture. So la 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 la, move it up here, boom, in there, and there we have an eye. And I need to locate this on top of the flesh, and right now by accident I put it inside the group. I do not want it inside of the group, so let's just find it. There you are. Put it on top of the phone. Okay. If any of you had problems extracting the eye, I already inside of the folder called extras, I extracted it for you. Whoops, not extra, sorry. The one called ready. I made an extraction of the eye in there. Yes. Okay, so doesn't work.
No, I only have the path. No, I don't have selected. It's only this.
Yeah. Well, you need to use it to delete. So go back inside of layers and make sure that you open up your background,
Yeah.
and then choose to delete the opposite. Okay, so when you got your eye in here, let's just do something weird with it. I'm gonna alt drag a new eye and alt drag a new eye, like that. And perhaps put them in a different order. Perhaps like this. Yeah. And I'm just going to merge these three so they're no longer separate units. They're no longer separate layers. Can anyone tell me how that you merge three layers to become one? Over here or over here? Okay, over by the layers, and here you want to choose merge layers. Precisely. This can also be chosen from the menu, the fold out menu right here. So either by right clicking and choosing it, or by just clicking up here in the fold out menu and choose merge layers. Okay, so I want them inside of the hand somewhere around here. Perhaps here. So I'm gonna actually put these eyes inside of the phone group because I want them to be part of another clipping mask, the clipping mask which is actually the hand itself. And I haven't made the hand into a clipping mask yet. So what I'll do is I'll be located between these two layers, the one where the hand is in and the mobile, the cellular phone, and the one where the eyes is in. And this one with the eyes is called layer 5, copy 2 in my case, while the hand itself is called layer 1. So I'll be located between those two, and I'll hold down Alt to get this clipping mask icon, and then I'll just click once. Boom. And the eyes will go inside of the hand. And then we can just notice it will also go inside the mobile phone. So if you wanted some kind of addition to the top of your phone, you could do that. And then after having done this, you could actually try using a blend mode to make it blend in with the flesh. You could keep it as it is. I think I'll take mine with darker color darker color. And perhaps add a drop shadow, just so it seems like it's some kind of metallic stuff on his hand that throws a shadow. So can anyone tell me how to include a layer style to a layer? How do I include a layer style, for example, drop shadow?
On the bottom there's this FX icon.
Hmm?
Drop shadow. Or you can double click on the
Precisely. So there's two ways of doing this. You can click on the FX icon and choose a layer style, or you could just double click the layer in question, which in my case is this one, layer 5, copy 2, that's the eyes right here. I could just double click next to the text. Do not double click on the text, then you'll just rename the layer. So double click outside of the text. And here I could just put on drop shadow, click on drop shadow, add some opacity, some distance, some spread, some size, and perhaps adjust the angle. That will kind of make a three-dimensional look to it. Can you see something? Yes. Okay. Cool. Yeah, and then you can also add other stuff, for example bevel and emboss, see if that can add some kind of fun effect to your picture, perhaps some contour, texture. Whatever effect you find proper. Let's just add a lot of effects. I think that's about enough. When we're done with the layer style, we'll just click OK, and then we have it added. The good thing about layer styles is it's a non-permanent change. You can always go back, remove some effects, or hide some effects. So it's not a permanent change. It's something you can always go back and change to its original appearance. Okay, so next up, I want to, you notice that after I use this watermelon shape on the background, that suddenly my picture seems a bit more noisy. There's more noise now to the picture. It seems a bit grainy because that's part of the effect. But out here where the watermelon has not been included as a blend mode, it seems perhaps too clean. So if I want to add some kind of noisiness to the background, I could go to my bottom layer. I think before actually doing anything to my background, I'll just put these watermelons inside of a group. So I'll just select all 3 of my watermelons, or 2 of them, depending on how many I have, make a group, call these background elements. Okay, so now we're ready to work with my background. I'll add some noise to it. Okay, so unlock my background, unlock the background, or actually you don't have to unlock it because you can just right click it and choose convert to smart object, because that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add the filter called noise to it. So convert to smart object, and then choose the filter called noise, add noise. That will add noise to our background, so it seems more intact with the rest of the vibe we're getting from the picture. And you decide how much, just whatever you think is the proper amount. Take into account that you're also, of course, adding noise to the watermelon, so that gets even more noisy than it is already. But that's not a problem, because by having made this background into a smart object, we can always change where the effect is most apparent by drawing that on our mask for the smart filter. So what's this smart filter I'm talking about? Well, that's when using a filter on a smart object, it becomes a smart filter with a mask attached to it. So let's say this is a fine amount of effect. Perhaps I'll actually exaggerate it, because I know I can always go back and change it. So I'll just click OK. And next thing I'll do is I'll perhaps start coloring black. First off, I'll click on my smart filter icon. I'm just gonna make my icons bigger. I'm gonna go to the flyout menu, select panel options, and choose for it to be large thumbnails. Okay, so now it's easier to see my mask. Okay, so I'll take my black color. Remember to click the smart filter. Remember to click the actual mask itself, which is just going to be white. When you click it, it's going to have these outer regions selected, so you can see, okay, this is what's active right now. Then you take your black color, because it's white already. White means that it's being totally affected in the areas where it's white. Black means that it will not be affected. Take my brush tool, and just start painting. And you'll notice that when I start painting like this, I have a lower opacity than 100%, so it's actually gonna paint gray. I'm gonna have a low hardness, and you can see that I'm actually removing noise from the areas I'm painting in. So I'll just perhaps start removing some of the noise, perhaps with an even lower opacity, meaning it will just be more light gray that I'm painting with. Instead of black, I'm painting with light gray. But because it's opacity, the more times you draw on top of that area, the darker it will become. I can always see that by Alt clicking once on my mask. You see, this is what I'm actually painting on my mask. I'll just click back to the layer and back to my mask again, just to go out of it. You could also just Alt click once on your mask to go out of it again, and just start painting. Okay, so suddenly I realize this noise effect is just too much. Well, then I can just double click the add noise down here, double click it, and choose for it to be a lower amount. Not only can I choose to double click the add noise, I can actually also double click the opacity of my add noise effect. So I can say, okay, it's supposed to be the same amount of noise, but we want it to be less visible, this amount of noise. So we're actually making the noise transparent. I think that's fine. Notice that you could also change blending modes in here, that you can change how the noise blends, perhaps making a somewhat more vivid looking picture. Whoa. Kind of like looks cool. I think I'll stick with that. And again, you can just continue painting. If you paint too much black, you can always go back to painting with white, and that will paint the noise right back on it. Okay, so next up, we're gonna look at putting a person inside of the picture. So on this, I'll just remove this one, move this one. On this picture right here, we got a dancer. We're gonna put this girl into the picture, and instead of us having to extract her, I think it's easier if we just use the picture I already extracted, so we don't have to extract a million pictures today. So, whoops, we're just gonna go out of our Photoshop to locate, or you could just say File, Open in Photoshop, to locate inside of the folder called Ready, the picture called Extract Dancer. And it's not the best extraction. I spent like 1 minute extracting her. You notice, for example, that there's some parts on her foot down here which is not perfect. Actually, you notice that this extraction is a bit different from the extractions we've made today, because I've extracted this picture using a mask. I already put a video up about how to extract with masks, but just so we remember how to do it, I'm just gonna instead simply just command click once on my layer mask thumbnail, layer mask thumbnail. You see, and then a selection appears. Command click once on my mask thumbnail, and then I can actually just throw out my mask in order for us to be able to make a new one. I'm going to throw that in the trash. I'll not apply it, I'll instead delete it. It will ask me, do you want to apply it or do you want to delete it? I'll delete it, otherwise it's going to remove the original background. Now you see, okay, this picture was actually an extraction which already also remembered the background, how it was in the start. And that's why a lot of people like making extractions with masks, because you can always go back to how it originally looked. So how do I make an extraction using a mask? You simply just make a selection. And you see here, perhaps some parts of this selection could have been better. Right here, for example, there's some part of the shadow being part of the selection. Did you all get how to do this? Get the original background back?
I don't have the file.
You don't have a file?
No, I only have the original one.
It's in the ready folder.
Okay.
It's not in the extras, as I said by mistake earlier.
Okay, yeah.
I'll just show it again. We're not in a hurry. So when you open this file, just command click once on the mask, the black and white mask right here. Command click that once, so it gets selected over here. Then when it's selected, you can actually throw the mask out by dragging it down to the trash bin. And instead of clicking apply, you'll click delete, because you want to delete the mask and not apply the effects. And like I said, this is not the best selection, but okay. So whenever you make a selection, instead of just inversing it and deleting like this, you can actually instead just have the person selected, the object selected, and then click on this small icon down here. There's at the bottom of your layers panel, there's something called a layer mask. So you can actually just click on add layer mask, and that will suddenly make a black and white mask, which is actually the same kind of mask you're used to working with. You can alt click on any type of mask and you'll see it in black and white. And you can actually draw on top of that mask with black and white or shades of gray. Yeah. I'm just gonna alt click on the mask again so we see the original picture extracted, and you can see that actually by painting with black, I'm just painting with black. Yeah, Rolling Stones, I know it. By painting black, you're actually removing parts of her, whereas when painting with white, you're making parts visible of her again. So you can, it's kind of like having a permanent history brush tool applied to your extraction. So if I wanted this part down here removed, I could just start removing it, nice and easy. And if I remove too much by accident, it's just a matter of painting it up again with white. Okay, so that was just a bit about using masks for extraction. We can move this picture now to the other picture. I'm just gonna use my black arrow. Remember, the path selection tool black arrow is only for vector. Since this has nothing to do with vector, using an extraction layer mask, it's gonna be the black move tool, the black arrow, which is the move tool. We're gonna move this, whoosh, yay, up into 2 background, gonna release it somewhere in here, and suddenly, whoa, why is it not there? And I want you to look hard on this picture because it is really there, but it's hiding somewhere. So what just happened to my picture? Where did this girl go? Yes, she went into the clipping mask of the skull because I was just editing that clipping mask. Yay! So she's actually in here, and perhaps I actually like that. So I'm just gonna make a copy of her. Copy. And you notice, whoa, that copy of her, Command J, went outside of the clipping mask. So I'm just gonna move that out here, because let's say this guy is trying to shoot a picture of her on ice. but something bad is gonna happen. You know, when the ice is too thin, something bad will happen if you yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. But it felt good saying it. I'm just gonna move her outside of what is happening? Did I put some kind of effect on this? Let me just check. What the? Okay, I just clicked undo and it was removed. That was kind of weird. Go outside of the phone, please. There's some weirdness added to her. I think I'll just need to put this picture in again. I think I'm just gonna undo this and not put her inside of this clipping mask. I don't really know what was just going on there. I'll click on her to be added on top of layer number 0. That must be some kind of mistake inside of Photoshop. I'll just move her, whoops, move her up here, inside of here, and now she'll be located the right place, and I'll move her on top of phone. And see, now it's not happening, so I don't know really what was going on. Sometimes Photoshop just messes up. I'm still gonna put her inside of the phone because I actually think that looked nice. So I'm gonna make a copy of her, and put that copy inside of the clipping mask down here, and then move her over there. Whee! You don't have to put her both places, but she needs to be out on the ice because we need to make a shadow going from her, a shadow that will drop onto the ice and make her kind of like a shadow reflection of her. I'm gonna make her smaller, so that's just free transform like that, because she seemed a bit too big as she was. And yeah, of course you could add all kinds of layer adjustments to make her fit in, making her act as a clipping mask. Let's say I wanted her to have some more bluish colors to match the background. Well, okay, then I could add some, let's say, color balance, and instead of affecting the entire picture, I could just stand between these two layers, hold down Alt, and click once on my mouse button. So only she is affected by this blueness. And I think I'll actually make her red. That's better with the watermelon background. Okay, so next off I want there to, well, before saying next off, actually, if you discover then that some parts have not been extracted correctly, let's see them. I know that I said this is a bad extraction, but it's actually not that bad. Okay, let's just say that it was a bad extraction, so I'll just make it one. Yeah, then you know that even though placing this inside of a new file, some of you perhaps would think it's going to be harder to make the extraction look better, but it's not. It's when you have this mask, it's just going to be the same no matter where the layers are located. So even though putting it inside of a file which has 30 layers, it's still going to be as easy refining this mask just by using black and white color to do so while located on top of the mask. One thing that is not as great a thing when it comes to masks is that every time you have a mask, that layer will take out double the amount of space as it would normally when it comes to how much space it takes out on your computer. So when you see a layer like this, this actually takes up as 2 layers, size-wise. When you're going inside image size and it says 39.3 megabytes, you can't really trust that size, because down here you'll see that because you're actually using 9 or 10 layers, it's going to be more like 317 megabytes if you save it in an uncompressed format, for example PSD. So to never believe this value in here. This was if it was saved perhaps as a TIFF, only including 1 layer, flattening the image. So with all the layers included, it's actually more like this size down here, 317.8 megabytes. Okay, so I'll click OK. Is this file heavy for any of your computers? Is any of your computers lagging? No? You got new computers, great computers. You got a shitty computer?
Yes.
Oh, so yours is lagging a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry for you.
And also sorry for my
Okay, so I'll make a shadow now just below her feet, and to do that I'll make a copy of her. I'm just gonna make a copy of her. Command J, and with this one I'm gonna throw this mask out. I'm just gonna throw this mask out, and it's gonna ask me, do you want to delete or apply this? And this time I'm gonna click apply instead. Apply. So now we actually, you see, we have a layer where the mask has actually cut out the surroundings from her. And I'll just move this around. You can see there's no mask on this one. What I actually want to do with this picture is I want to make her totally black or totally dark gray, or this needs to be the shadow going from her feet down across the ice. So I'm gonna just select everything that's her and fill it with black. So command click on this girl right here. Make sure that none of her is sticking outside of the picture. Do not do it while she's located like this, because you cannot paint anything which is outside of the picture. So when command clicking, she needs to be inside of the picture, totally. I'll just command click on her and then fill her with, I'm not going to use entirely black, I'm actually going to select perhaps very dark gray, kind of like this. Okay. And then just say Alt. Can anyone tell me how to fill in foreground color inside of a selection? What's the shortcut? Shortcut for filling in foreground color to a what?
Alt backspace.
Yes, Alt backspace. And there we have it. We got a shadow shape. This needs to be flipped, so it's gonna be below the original, and of course it needs to be behind, so I'm gonna move it below her like that, and then I'm gonna say free transform, that's command T, and I'm actually just gonna say in height I'm gonna say minus 100. And then you can actually just move it down below her feet. And you perhaps it's a long shadow, perhaps it's a short shadow, depending on how the sun is falling inside of this picture. So you could just free transform it again to make it kind of more how you feel the sun is located inside of your picture. If you think that perhaps the sun is coming in this direction, so the shadow needs to go out like this, well, then you can just take one of the other free transforms. You can just right click while free transform is available, right click on your transformation and choose for it instead to use one of these other transformations. For example, some of you might choose perspective. Often skew actually works better, but you could try perspective, and you'll notice perspective will often do something that's not good. But instead perhaps choose skew. Oops. And here you can actually kind of make a long shadow. So perhaps that's how I want it. That's just using different transform techniques. They are located, all of them are located up here, edit transform. So if you want the menu for it, it's edit transform, and you can just choose between different ones here. We worked with using the warp last time. That might work as well when working with shadows, especially if the shadow falls on like an object which is three-dimensional, let's say a piece of wood. Then you would like some piece of the shadow to kind of like curve a bit over that three-dimensional object. Then warp would probably be a great suggestion for transforming it. But okay, you can just test those out yourself. When you've made this shadow approximately as you want it, you can just use a blend mode so it blends in correctly with your picture. So I'm just trying to use different modes, and lighten is probably a bad idea for a shadow. So it's gonna be most likely overlay or any of those down here, because we don't want it darker than it is already. We already selected it to be like 80% gray, so that's kind of very dark already. So it's most likely gonna be one of the blend modes which does not make it darker, does not make it lighter, but instead makes it somewhere in between.
What about opacity?
Yeah, you can also change the opacity, no problem. So actually, sometimes people just use opacity, but let's see what happens if it's set to normal and I just use opacity. It kind of becomes a very flat shadow. So what's good about it's actually good using both. So if I choose, let's say, overlay, you notice that then it's kind of like it blends in with the different colors, so it seems more realistic. But then perhaps it's still too dark, and then I can just change the opacity to a lower value, so it seems approximately how I would like it. And that gives us a nice looking shadow. Okay, so next up we have a cloud, and we have this cloud right here. If you look on my final artwork, there's a cloud coming out from kind of like her elbow. It was kind of inspired by some of these Chinese movies. House of Flying Daggers and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yeah. So I thought that there's always like clouds and stuff coming out of their hands and whatnot. So I figured add a cloud to that, but I think you should try doing that yourself. So just extract the cloud and try bending it somehow and using a blend mode to it, so it actually looks as if there's coming something out of her elbow, perhaps. It doesn't need to be right there. You could also put some clouds up in the sky. Just make them blend so it looks realistic. And okay, so the last part was actually this one right here. You could extract that with pen tool just to get some more experience with using pen tool. I choose the one right here, the male symbol. This is male and female symbol, and put it up in the sky where two of them is located. So perhaps if you're a female, you would put the female symbol in the sky and use some blend modes on it. It's really just a matter of repeating what we've been saying. There is one more thing that's added to this picture, which is text. So I suggest adding text as well. And on this text you could choose to use different effects. You see the original text just looks like this. It's made with probably chalk duster. Let me check. Yeah, chalk duster regular. And I just added a layer style to it with bevel and emboss, with color overlay, and with drop shadow, and it looks amazingly horrible. Perhaps it wouldn't look that bad if I choose another font, like Comic Sans, the worst font in the world, approximately. And some of you are like, you're feeling like, why is he saying Comic Sans is the worst font in the world? I always use Comic Sans. Well, you should stop doing that, and you should not ask why, because it's simply horrible. Okay, so I think this bevel and emboss effect really looks bad on it. Perhaps this is just better just with a plain drop shadow. Mobile dancing. I don't know, perhaps she's kicking mobile dancing out of the screen, so it's just like that. Okay, so try finishing up this picture, perhaps by putting some text in, perhaps by putting these clouds in, perhaps by putting a symbol inside of it, and just blending them together to get some kind of nice picture, or at least some kind of artistic picture, because you know, as people say, art is in the eyes of the viewer. So you might think it's beautiful while everyone else think it's crap. So make and complete your artwork. Add something to it. Thank you very much.